Question concerning what you have asked today. You have asked many things, but today at the same time there is the discussion at the General Assembly on the resolution, and I was wondering if you, what is your perspective on this resolution, which is basically only asking for a ceasefire. Do you think that's enough, or do you think that the international community should have put more expectations in this resolution? Thank you.
Yes, I might disagree with you that we ask many things. We ask one simple, very simple thing, all of us in unison, the compliance with international law. It's not charity, it's an obligation. And I will not comment on a resolution that I've not read in its final form. I just want to say that, again, the path is clear. It's a moment of crisis. I agree with many who see the present and the future very bleak. But as it happens on airplanes that are about to, going through turbulence, the lights on the floor are there. And the enlightened path is international law. As I said, end of the genocide, call it ceasefire, I'm fine. Ceasefire now, then end of the occupation by next year, and then end of the apartheid, because this is the only way to ensure that Palestinians and the Israelis will be able to live in freedom, dignity and peace in the land comprised between the river and the sea. And there is a lot to do about that, because it's not just Israel's impunity and Israel's violations of international law, which are countless. It's the violations of international law on member states. I tend to blame the West because this is the part of the world I belong to, I come from, and it's the most influential, but also the rest. There are so many responsibilities. So we need to look also as a civil society to make sure that when I say justice starts at home, the responsibility of public and private actors comes finally under check.
I have just a simple question, actually. The ICC decision against Netanyahu and Gallant is just against two people. So I know the Prime Minister and the Minister of Justice, but my question is, have you a list, or are you preparing a list of all the names that are responsible against in this genocide, not just officers in Israel, but also all these persons in other countries, but especially in Israel? Thank you so much.
If I may chime in with a complementary information, the system that the International Criminal Court is premised upon is based on complementarity. Therefore, the role of national courts, I keep on saying, is so relevant, not only because there is a universal jurisdiction on crimes like genocide, but also because to a large extent the perpetrators are also nationals of other countries. And therefore, they should be held accountable under their national framework. And I'm referring to nationals who have been fighting in the Israeli army, individuals who live in the settlements and might have committed violence against the Palestinians. There are many who have double nationalities, Western nationalities, but also Arab nationalities, a number of them. And there are Western citizens who are selling and purchasing property stolen from the Palestinians in the occupied Palestinian territory. I recently discovered that this happens in Canada and elsewhere in the world. And also there are businesses, charities, pension funds, banks. For this, you will have to wait for my next report, because this is what I'm investigating. But again, it's an incredible realm of untapped opportunities for justice.
For taking my question, Nina Larson, also AFP. Just to follow up on that, I was just wondering if you've had conversations with people indicating that there is a movement towards wanting to exclude Israel and remove their voting rights. And then my other question was on Syria. I'm wondering if you are concerned that what's happening in Syria right now is removing the focus from what's going on in Gaza, or maybe it's highlighting, as you were mentioning, Israel's actions more broadly, given their airstrikes. If you could just comment on that. Thank you.
I will be brief on the first question, but also I would like to invite my colleagues to comment on the second part of your question. Honestly, I've had engagement with regional groups and individual states on my recommendations. I would say that most of the discussions I've led were on the need to impose sanctions on Israel, to stop the trade of arms, oil, and goods, and not just what is sold, what is transferred directly and indirectly, what is purchased from Israel. Because it's incredible that there are member states that are still trading and buying surveillance services and weapons that have been tested on the Palestinians. So, honestly, this has taken more of my bilateral engagement when I was in New York and after the presentation of my report. I've heard there are member states from the Global South picking up on that. Again, the fact of having that on the table is to remind people of what complying with international law means and what not complying with international law might imply, because it seems that it's really totally can be neglected ad libitum as it pleases. Just one comment, because again, you might have heard my disgruntlement at the work that corporate media have done in general on Palestine and the Palestinians, but I would say also to the detriment of the Israelis, because the situation is not conducive for anyone. But Western media will have, in particular, to interrogate themselves on the role they have played in manufacturing consensus by obscuring, muting, silencing certain realities, and supporting the the narrative that came out around what is being labeled the war again between Hamas and Israel, instead of talking of what has been going on from the perspective of the victims. So, again, I know that Palestine might fall off the heart of politicians and the media, but no, this will not stop the revolution that is mounting for justice. That many young people see in Palestine the epitome of so many injustices, and I'm sure this will not stop.
It has been said that if the United States and Germany stop supplying weapons to Israel, the attack against the Gaza population would stop immediately. So my question is, to what extent the political leaders of these countries, Germany and the United States, who has approved the export of these weapons, can be also considered criminally responsible under international law?
Concerning the Germany in particular, but other states as well, there is the International Court of Justice this year, in the proceedings initiated by Nicaragua versus Germany, has reminded all states of their international obligation relating to the transfer of arms to parties to armed conflict, in order to avoid the risk that such arms might be used to violate not just the Genocide Convention, but also the Geneva Conventions. And the court has also reminded that these obligations are incumbent upon Germany as a state party to this convention in its supplies of arms to Israel. So again, there has been quite a progression, a significant progression in legal developments and justice in the case of Palestine. The problem is, as I often said, international law is as strong and effective as the will of states to abide by it, and this is not the case. But I wanted to make another comment on the conduct of hostilities, because I I mean, having been one of those investigating those conducts from close, but also from afar, looking at the ensemble of the violations together, looking at the jurisprudence existing in the case of genocide, of course, there are war crimes and crimes against humanity that have been committed. And frankly, Palestinians have experienced war crimes and crimes against humanity for decades. And as the International Court of Justice says that in order to determine genocidal intent, one is to look at the conduct holistically. My colleague mentioned a number of elements like the repetition of the same pattern. I would like to refer all of you to the work, to the incredible work that has been done not just by Amnesty International or as investigating several parts of what has happened of the Israeli conduct, but also forensic architecture, which has produced maps of all the assaults and incidents that have transformed the land of Gaza into the wasteland that it is today, which have the military assault that has ungrounded large swathes of Gaza, and how hospitals, schools, churches, mosques, refugee camps and distribution of aid and medical care have been decimated. So we have to look, this is what I argue in my report, my last report, at the totality of the conduct, against the totality of the members of the group as such. The Palestinians have been targeted as such, and this is not my invention. This is in the words of the Israeli leaders and the soldiers who have become willful executioners. Also would like to remind everyone that, I mean, in a war, the aim, the objective, the legal objective, what is acceptable in a war is the defeat of the enemy. When the objective is total destruction, and this has been, again and again, it continues. The fact that it continues in the face of all these developments at the legal level, the denunciation, it shows that when the objective is destruction, well, probably the conduct should be interrogated as a genocidal one.